Hey guys, J. Edgar here. I have been threatening to make this video for a very long time, even while the primaries were still going on, because it was very clear at that time that Donald Trump was going to be the nominee. Enough people looked back at, number one, the fact that he was running, number two, the fact that they do think that honk honk things I can't say on YouTube happened, and they were honk honk robbed of their second term. And a lot of people are just looking back and saying, hey, things were doing much better under Trump. Now, me, myself, I have always been wary of going back and making the vote again. I've been vocal about this. I've been open about this. I was not very impressed with the first term of Trump, except for the fact that, like many of the people who are planning on voting for him again, I did very well financially under Trump. A little bit of that was the right thing at the right time and things timing and lining up right away. Although I will say that a lot of those things probably would not have lined up had it not been for the financial policies and the regulatory policies that were put in place under the Trump administration. I understand that. But I did have very big problems with him. And a lot of people who follow this channel, have been following this channel for a long time, know I put out a video in October of 2020 saying that I had chosen to endorse Trump, but I was kicking and screaming and doing it. I did not want to. I didn't want to vote for him. I didn't want to endorse him. I didn't want him to be the president again, completely honestly. But I was also convinced by a lot of people that he was going to be no matter what, whether or not he had my vote or not. Honk honk. And well, we can see that that did not wind up happening. But there were a lot of very big concerns out of his first term. The spending was the big one for me. It was the reason that I was not aboard the Trump train until 3 weeks before Election Day. And it was literally 3 weeks before when I put out the video and said, okay, fine, you wore me down, you broke me down. I'm going to give not only the vote, but the endorsement. He made some vague platitudes about federalism, which is a big thing for me at the very end. And that was what pushed me over the edge, but I had always kept the idea of the spending because I was promised, right around the time that Kavanaugh was being nominated, that the omnibus that they put out to keep the government open at that point was the last one he was ever going to sign. 3 omnibuses later and 2 COVID spending bills later, here we are. But I was very much promised that no more omnibuses, we were going to have a balanced budget. And while I'm not a big culture war conservative, I will come full out and admit that. I've never been a big culture war conservative. I'm very libertarian on the culture war aspects of it. I am a fiscal hawk. I love it when leftoids come out onto X and try to tell me, oh, well, Donald Trump spent more than this and he spent this. And I said, I know. And I criticized him for it. That doesn't make what your deity, Joe Biden, is doing is right. And I've been consistent with that. I have complained about the spending. I said, you're correct. He spent all that money. That doesn't make what Biden is doing is right. That's been the big thing with me, is it doesn't make what Biden is doing right. Now, as we come into this next election cycle, and the Donald is the heir apparent, and I don't think the lawfare is going to do shit. I think he's going to come right down, and the RNC would be completely suicidal if they were to come out and do the brokered convention and say, hey, you know what? We got to get somebody else in here because indictment this and felony that and conviction this and lawsuit that and other lawsuit this and all the other fun stuff that's going on with that. That would be the death knell of the Republican Party right then and there, because do you have enough Ron Bros to hold you up at this point? I don't think you do. Now, usually when I do videos like this, and you're already seeing some of this going, oddly enough, is where I go and ramble and tell anecdotes and stories off the rails. I actually made a list this time through. I don't have a script. I usually know what I want to talk about when I do videos like this. This is not the bullet point line by line script that I used to do when I made videos when I started off here. Those videos are done. Doing contemporary changed the way that I do one-off videos. But I still want to make sure that I get to everything off of this and not just go completely off the rails in an anecdote when I tell a story. And tell you what actually I want to see before I will say, yes, I will vote for this person. Is any of this on the list going to get done? I don't think so. I'm going to be completely honest. But this is what I need to see in order to vote for Donald Trump in 2024. And the big one. I realize the irony of the fact that I started this video starting off talking about 2020 is I need him to stop talking about 2020. Number one, stop talking about 11/3/January 6th. The conservatives, so-called, the MAGA people on Twitter, run out. Anytime they see something they don't like or something about Biden or this or that and the next thing, it's one of the big attack lines that they use. Can I say this on YouTube? I actually can say this on YouTube right now. Number one, it's a quote. Number two, for right now, they've relaxed their rules. But they always come out with the same thing. Trump won. Well, if Trump won, why is he not making policy? I am sympathetic to the honk honk and the honk this and the honk that. There are things that happened on that night that I cannot explain. There are things that I have theories about, but things that I cannot explain. But, and again, YouTube, this is a hypothetical. This is not me saying what happened, so don't ban me, bro. But the moment Joe Biden put his hand on the Bible and said, "Hey, man, hi, is my name Corn Pop? Okay, I, Joe Biden, I promised to uphold the thing, man, and so help me, that guy up there that I'm going to meet pretty soon, yeah. The second that he did that, it was over. There was nothing more that anybody could do. And again, this when I say this, YouTube, this is a hypothetical. This is not me saying, again, what is going to happen, because they're going to change the rules sometime down the road, especially if they get an outcome out of 2024 that they don't like. They'll change the rules somewhere down the road, and suddenly it'll be bannable again, and they can retroactively go through videos that followed the rules at the time and ban you. But this is a hypothetical when I say this. You could go through right now, do a forensic audit. You couldn't do it anymore because they destroyed most of the evidence. But say you could, in a hypothetical, you could go through and do a forensic audit of all 50 states, check all the voter rolls, voter registrations, do hand recounts, and come up with the fact that, oh, well, you guys, it was actually a 50-state landslide. Donald Trump won every single state, and he even won the popular vote. You could do that right now. It is not going to change a goddamn thing about what happened in 2020. As soon as Joe Biden put his hand on that Bible, any challenge that you would do would need. You can't change the results of the election. No court can go back and do that as soon as Joe Biden took the oath of office. Now, there was a time and a place for this in the beginning. I will fully admit that there was a time and a place for this in the beginning. To come back out and say, okay, this is what we see, this is what happened. Can we make laws to mitigate this? We're at a point right now where the laws in the states that are going to change have already changed. And the states that are not going to change are run by people who like the results. And they're not going to change. And they're not going to defortify Hong Kong. Now is the time to look forward and make your pitch to what it is that you are going to do for the American people. For the 4 years that would follow the 2024 election, should you become the president of that. By the end of 2022, the conversation about 2020 should have been completely over. Nobody should even be talking about this. And I know it's going to be hard for him to do. That's why I have this list of things that I don't think he's going to do. Because anytime that somebody out there, a Ron Bro, they're really good about this, a leftoid, people like that are going to run up, and if he stops talking about it and starts talking about what he's going to do in 2024, the first topic of conversation is going to be, well, 2020, hey, didn't you win 2020? And he's Donald Trump. He's going to get pulled off to the side off of something like that. He's good at it. So He's probably going to keep talking about this up to the beginning, but he needs to stop. And I need to see him stop before I can go and vote for him. Number 2, spending. Spending was the big problem that I had. I love the tax cuts. I love the deregulation. I love the fact that people were so desperate for workers that they were starting to offer up major employment packages to try to pull workers away from other employers up until the pinko pox hit. Honk honk. Like I said before, that did really, really well for me. And even though I stayed with the same job throughout the entirety of the first term of Trump, because of the fact that there were other people out there who were courting me, they were throwing raises at me left and right. Giving me a better situation, a shorter commute, a raise, things like that left and right. Once Biden took over, all that shit dried up in a hurry. Because they weren't really afraid of losing anybody anymore. Because there were still people who were out there begging for jobs, but it was also getting tight, and labor was a factor in what it was that everybody could do. Now, with that being said, the spending was the sticking point. And I said that in the introduction to this video. The spending was the sticking point for me. I was told we would have a balanced budget. We'd have the debt paid off. That didn't fucking happen. Or we'd have at least a way to go and start to pay it down like we did under Clinton. That's the last time we had a balanced budget, by the way, in this country. Under Bill Clinton. Doesn't help that George W. sat there and started putting wars on a credit card, but that's what I need to see. Not just, okay, we're going to come in here, and we're going to stop spending. Stop the spending, no more omnibus. I need a bulletproof, bullet point plan on how you are going to do that. It needs to have provisions for an unfavorable Congress, because, like it or not, you are probably not going to get the Congress that you want coming up in 2024. So I need to see a plan on how you get around that, how you make the deal, how you make the art of the deal, and how you cut the spending. By the way, that Republicans claim that they want to, even though they just came out with a $1.7 trillion omnibus for the remainder of the election cycle. And I also need a set of provisions for what you do, how you message once the government shuts down, because that mainstream media that you love to tell, that you love to say, they hate me, they're going to make everything look bad, they're going to crucify me, nobody treated me worse, I'm treated even worse than Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, well, once the government is shut down, your name is going to be the name on everybody's tongue. Trump shut the government down. Trump hates the government workers. He shut the government down. Look at all these people going without paychecks. I've had some ideas on how to message for that. A lot of it involves finding out when the government runs out of money, having a counter, and having a press conference every day saying, we need a budget by this point. The people who are in control of Congress are not giving me a budget. I need a budget by this point. And getting out ahead of it, because they don't bring this shit up until 3 days before the government runs out of money. It's usually more like 2 weeks, but I'm using 3 days as a hyperbolic point. They don't bring this stuff up until the very last second, and they've already got a thousands and thousands and thousands of page bill for an omnibus waiting, and that they're going to pass through in the dead of the night when nobody has a chance to read it. I need to see a plan to get around that and to message to the American people and say, hey, it's wrong that they're doing this. Number 3, the border. Illegal immigration. This I could actually see getting done. The other 2 points, I have no faith that either of those are going to get done. This one I could see getting done. That was one of the big points of the first term of the Trump presidency, and he did, by executive order, and by changing of some of the laws, start to make more border security. The leftoids will come back and tell you, oh no, Joe Biden inherited Donald Trump's mess. Donald Trump ruined the border. Kids in cages. Well, the kids in the cages were a deterrent. number one. And number two, we had fewer apprehensions because we had fewer attempts at the time. But everything I've seen in a rally for the last, 3-4 months has been, Joe Biden's border, it's terrible. It's the worst border in history. It's completely wide open. Joe Biden did, Joe Biden that. Okay, well, tell me what you're going to do. Put your money where your mouth is. Are we going to build a wall? How are you going to get funding for the wall? Can we get the wall? Can you shut the border down? Can we get more border patrol? What else? What other things do you have in place? And I also need to see a plan for what to do with what happened under the Biden presidency, with the people who came over under that, who are in our system, whether legally, illegally, asylum seekers, otherwise. How to expedite that, how to get that done quickly, how to get people to go to their court dates, and how to actually handle the deportation. I need to see that as well. And I need to see that in a way that doesn't completely crash the housing market. Because once you start opening up properties, the value that people are banking on their houses being, which is completely overinflated, that's going to drop out too. That's a completely other factor I've brought up too, talking about when we're just going to ban Chinese people from owning any property in this country. Chinese entities, Chinese companies, we're going to ban it up. Okay. Well, you're going to have a market bubble burst and people are going to lose everything just like they did in 2008. But that's a story for another video. I do need to see how we plan to fix the mess that Biden did. How we plan to do the deportation, the court system, the court filings, and to close the border. Number 4. We need a plan for what to do about, and I know there's probably not going to be a COVID too. There might be. They might be dumb enough to try that again. But what to do with the economic fallout. Now, the reason I bring this up is because you showed Democrats what works. I have advised Republicans against doing that since they started doing the lawfare thing. When all the Ron bros came out and started saying, oh, we can't support Trump because he's got this indictment and that indictment, and this person accused him and that person accused him. Don't you think that they have people lined up and crimes found already to start throwing at DeSantis if he becomes the front runner somewhere? If he is supposedly just like Trump except without the drama. These people have no morals. They have no shame. There is somebody out there who is willing to say something, and then the next question is going to be, why don't you believe all women? Don't you believe that Ron DeSantis forcefully raped this woman? That's coming. But I use that as a more hyperbolic point to the idea of, you've showed the leftoids what works to get rid of somebody that you don't like. Under the Pinko Pox, New York City shut most of its economy down, which is where a lot of our banking, a lot of our financial sector, and a lot, not so much of our programming sector, a lot of that gets done in California, but there is enough there that it made a dent. People couldn't go to work, people were stopping work, people were shutting down everything else. Plus, the attendant businesses on the side. The hot dog vendor, the bodega, those were shutting down. The restaurant, the bank, the in-person bank, and a swath of other service industries out there that could not operate under Andrew Cuomo's New York government, which curbed people's spending. It got the government to come back out and try to inject stimulus money in, which goes back to my second point, obviously. I don't know what they would use as the pretense and the precursor to go and do any of this, but I know that we as a country showed our friends on the left that if you shut down the economy in major left-wing cities across the country, it will put a dent and a detriment to the stock market, to the jobs numbers, which they love to harp about the fact that Donald Trump lost this many jobs. Well, a lot of them were COVID layoffs. Almost all of them were COVID layoffs at the time. They know it works. They're going to do it again. And they might not do it on the last second like they did the last time. There's an equal chance that they come back out and just start doing it as soon as Donald Trump comes in. Oh, I'm sorry, we just have to shut all our jobs down. Oh, hey, look at all these jobs we just lost in New York. Hey, look, he's not creating jobs, he's destroying the jobs that Biden put into place. Oh, Houston is shut down. No. Oh, look at all those jobs we just lost. Wyoming and South Carolina are going to thrive, but I mean, Wyoming has 750,000 people that live there. New York has that in a 12-block radius. So, I need to see a provision as to what to do about the fact and how to, number one, message. Messaging is going to be the most important part. Because as a Federalist, you're not going to be able to do the things to try to mitigate these things. The localities, the local governments, and even the business leaders that hate you in these localities are going to do this willingly. They'll take the hit in their pocketbook to make sure that you look as bad as possible to kill your movement. And that brings me to the fifth point, the last thing that I need to see, is a plan for the continuation of the movement. The Republican Party, for the first time in my life, is actually doing something to conserve. And that is given the fact that their leader, de facto, is not a conservative. I have never once accused Donald Trump of being a conservative. But we're looking at states' rights, and some of the states' rights are aligning with the culture war. A lot. While those out in la-la leftoid land are just slaughtering their own young and letting everything else fall into chaos. The people who want to be conservative get to be conservative, and they don't impose their will out onto the people who are out in la-la lefty land. It's probably one of the most conservative ideals that I've ever seen. Again, being led by a 90s New York Democrat. Figure that one out. But I need to see a plan to continue this. Like I said, in the fourth point, the business leaders, the local government, the state government of New York, California, Washington, Oregon, where all the big population centers, Maryland, Virginia, Illinois is going to get on this. Even Minneapolis is going to get onto this. Are going to try to make it look like you just lost massive amounts of jobs and large swaths of the economy and the stock market and the GDP in order to try to quash this movement. Your presidency more specifically, but this movement in generally. And the Haleys and the DeSantises and the Bushes are out here licking their chops, waiting for the populist sector of the conservative movement to disappear, to be put down in shame. And they're also waiting for its, again, de facto leader to be termed out and can't get voted back in after the fact. So how do you message? How do you do it? The rhetoric demonizing the movement, the Matt Gaetz trafficked young women, the Trump grabbed this woman by this, or the Bergdorf, or Marjorie Taylor Greene is this, and Lauren Boebert is that. That is going to be ramped up tenfold if Donald happens to win 2024. So I need to see a plan before I can vote Trump 2024 of how you message and how you continue this movement and how you keep it away from the Bushes of the world, of the Haleys of the world. How do you keep it away from RDS? How do you keep it away from these people who want to go out, make government bigger, spend more money, and start more wars? That's what I need to see. It's a big list. I don't see any of it happening except for possibly the border plan. That one I could possibly see. But this is what I need to see in order for the Trump presidency to be in my radar again. I was failed the first time. I voted in 2016 eagerly, thinking that a businessman coming into the office would actually know how to run a budget, manage a budget, sell a budget to a board, aka Congress, and get some of the spending cut. I know a lot of other people were happy about the culture war. And hey, even Ann Coulter was out there saying, hey, he's going to be this much of a racist, and we can be this white supremacist. She was the most disappointed out of them all. I was disappointed in the 2016 to 2020 performance. Very much so, in spite of the fact that it benefited me. But getting a plan on these lists on paper with a realistic agenda as to how to get it done will at least make me comfortable with coming and pulling the lever for Trump. Would he enact any of it? Well, that would be the chance I would have to take. But that's what I need to see. So, thanks guys. We'll see you on Tuesday for more Contemporary. Take care.